Okay, so Lauren, you have this interesting mental health issue and journey that probably, if we are all honest with ourselves, can we can encounter at certain points in our lives. You got back in the gym. That was when you finally got back in the gym. Jeff encouraged you. Know your spouse. He did it in a loving way that was both motivating, but also responded to you and your particular temperament. And did your mental health get better in the gym?
Yeah, so I was really able, once I started tracking my food, I was able to notice that the days that I had high sugary foods
Hmm.
and high processed foods, that my mental health would decline the next day.
Wow.
Those are the days that I would have negative self thoughts.
Hmm.
Those are days when I would have kind of a little bit more of like the intrusive, like, hey, this doesn't align with how I feel about myself actually, but I just keep having these thoughts about, man, I don't like my body, or this doesn't look good. And so I really started to detox from not eating sugary or high processed foods. And once I kind of learned that about my body, it made it very easy to stick to a clean diet because I didn't really crave those things because I didn't want the after effect of them.
Wow. So journaling that, or at least logging that, or at least mentally kind of taking note of it, mindfulness, right?
Yes.
Allowed you to give yourself proper motivation and reward, or a negative outcome that you wanted to avoid at least. Was that separate from the gym, the food? Like, even if you went to the gym, but you also, so any mental benefit that you would gain from the gym, could it be self-sabotaged by eating processed foods and sugary foods?
1,000% it was for
Mm,
me. I
yeah.
mean, because I was at this point, I was doing everything I knew to do, and had detoxed from the sugary foods. I was working out, I was drinking the water. Because at this point, Jeffrey was already well on his way and doing all the things. It was kind of me trying to catch up. And it really took that mindset shift to help that.
Let me ask you a tough question. Did you consider going to see a psychiatrist? And did you consider, you're a nurse, you're a registered nurse, you had ample background in it and education. Did you consider getting on an antidepressant or anything? Or did you not even consider it?
I don't want to say that I didn't consider it. I felt that's kind of why I feel like I went to him and said, I'm sharing this with you. I don't really want to share this outside of the two of us because I am more holistic in approach and
Mhm.
didn't and there is, listen, I'm in the medical field. There is a time and place
For sure.
for modern medicine, 1,000%. I am not naive to that, and I believe in medicine. I knew and actually had been on an antidepressant before.
Oh.
Shortly after we got married and our house burnt down, I was dealing with kind of the same things, just like, man, life is good, but how do I deal with this? And had gotten on Wellbutrin.
Hmm.
And I was on Wellbutrin for like 6 months probably. And I do not recommend this. This is not what I ask people to do or
Mhm.
recommend. You should totally taper your dose. But this, I mean, this was so many years ago. And I just had struggled with like, man, I don't need to be on this drug. It's my mindset that I need to change. And there are so many different things with that. So don't get off of your
It's
drugs.
not medical advice.
This
She's
is not
just
medical
sharing her
advice. This is
story.
just my personal story and what I knew. I was very like, I am in control of my thoughts and my actions. And so at that time, I cold turkeyed and went off. So I had this past relationship with being on an antidepressant. And so I just was like, I am in control of my thoughts and my feelings. And it's going to take, just like exercising in the gym, it's going to take me exercising and remembering that every single day. And when I have this thought of, oh, I don't like my body today, or thinking that, oh, I'm just a horrible person and nobody likes me and all things, that is me and my mind. And I need to reel that back in and control that.
That's phenomenal.
And so I had to daily sharpen those skills. That still takes every
Yeah.
single day. I mean, there's still times in my life where I'm like, very like people pleasing tendencies,
Mhm.
and I have to realize that that is not what life is about. I can't control my actions and my thoughts, and so I did not want to get on an antidepressant or go see a psychiatrist. I wanted to deal with things in my own mind because I was safe. We were safe with that. I was okay. I was protected. We were taking actions against. And I told him, I'm going to tell you every time I have a thought or things like that. And it was very quickly that I was able to correlate it to food. in my decline of my mental health. So I was able to kind of control that very quickly.
The cool thing about your story is that we just got out of the world got out of this terrible pandemic and this crisis with the COVID and all the stuff around it that is or isn't true and all the stuff too. But there was this thought that came out and it permeates in modern society, and it's like a Venn diagram with intersecting circles with medicine and society at large, like a lot of things in life are, where trust the science, it's science, you should trust the science. And I get that. And we're always, because the complexity of our world is massive, and human beings' ability to grasp, decode, understand, and then explain to other human beings these, we don't know everything, but we know a lot more than we ever did at any other point in history. And so it's almost like we're looking for these complex medical explanations based in science, and we forget about just the normal built-in, very cool, high-level biophysiologic mechanisms that are in our own body. And you say holistic, and that's how I would say it too, but there is thankfully this burgeoning field of the science of that, and saying, look, it's because when you describe SSRIs and you mention serotonin and synaptic clefts and neurons, and it sounds so official, but there's that same analog on the other side, and there's a huge amount of science saying what you did was evidence-based. Now, we wouldn't have said it back then. And so, and it's funny because people trust the science, they get on SSRIs, and there is a time and place,
Yes,
and they are
for sure.
good. And I have, just full disclosure, I've struggled with depression too and used them, and it was a good thing, but there was also a lot of side effects that you don't want and different things, or you don't get as well as you want, or you get to some other new normal, yada, yada. But taking the time to trust the science and in the science of your own body and how you can heal yourself. And I'm not saying something mystical or weird. I'm just saying there's these adaptive strategies that are harder.
They're hard.
But you did it, and that's fantastic. And we know now there's a lot of science behind it that backs this up. And you also did it in a really cool way. You practiced mindfulness. You engaged a trusting, loving partner. You had a backup plan. You contracted for safety. Then you started logging. If somebody finds those things daunting, number one, and also, or they find the fact that you said, I'm going to take control. I have this, I'm going to do these things, and giving yourself agency back. How did you do that when you were feeling low? What strategies did you use that somebody listening to this today could use? Was it something was it Jeff that inspired you? Was it just something you learned, being mindful and listening to your own self? Or how did you dig deep? And that's kind of a scary place to be when you're having those thoughts.
It is. And it definitely played into, I had a very loving and supportive partner who wasn't scared for me to share my thoughts and my feelings.
That's huge. Yeah.
I think that's so important because
especially that last part could face that with you.
Yes.
That fear, like, hey, you can tell me anything and I'm not going to freak out and run.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have a comfortable, safe relationship in that. And he definitely is the person that I feel comfortable sharing those things with. But now I'm on the other side and can share that with the world. You have to be very honest with yourself. Mm. And I think a lot of times
that's it right there, isn't it?
We fall victim to being the victim, and we think,
God, that's true.
These are my circumstances. This is me. This is where I'm at.
This is great. Yeah.
But that's not where you have to be.
Yeah.
You do not have to stay there. That might be how you were brought up. That might be the things that surround you. That might be the way you feel today or in this moment. But you don't have to stay there. And so I daily had to go, man, this isn't I'm saying these things to myself that, I don't need to be here. Life would be better without me. The boys and Jeffrey would be better without me. I don't need to be here. I don't have value.
Why was that? It was that dark.
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
I was saying these things to myself, but sometimes the things that we think are not reality.
Yeah.
They're not reality. We're overcomplicating and overthinking the situation
right.
and the reality. And if we have somebody that we believe that supports us and understands us and that we feel safe with and can share that, they're going to go, no, that's actually, nobody feels like that at all.
Right.
Oh my gosh, you actually add so much value. And
right.
but you have to be honest. This is where I am. This is what's going on to yourself, and sometimes maybe even out loud to yourself. And then you have to surround yourself with people who are going places and maybe don't get in the boat with you, they want to pull you up to where they are, to level up. And so for me, and the time in my life where I was driving in my car a lot. This is when, COVID kind of opened up. I was traveling a lot for work. And so we were having a lot of conversation behind the scene, but I was in the car a lot. And so I decided at this time that I was going to surround myself with mentors. And while that wasn't somebody who was in the room with me, I could easily turn on a podcast. And I would spend 3 to 4 hours in the car a day. And I literally have consumed all of Ed Milet's podcast. And I will still say to this day that there's a huge piece that he saved in my life, because it helped me to better myself and my mindset. And literally, it's just like working out at the gym. You have to work on that every single day. It is not something that you just wake up and you're like, man, I just think better. I'm a better person because I think better about myself. You have to work towards self-development every single day. And there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. And so for me,
this is so cool. I didn't know it's part of your story. And I feel the same way. Like I will force myself to listen to this podcast. And I really do feel that there's a compounding effect, and you do get a mentorship from that. Ed, if you're out there listening to this, I mean, and there's lots of really great influencers and really great, and I'm not, but I think Ed's fantastic. I don't obviously know him, or I'm not even at that level in his stratosphere, but he's got a fantastic message. Thank you for what you're doing. It obviously helped Lauren.
Yeah.
But that commitment to do it, where there's sometimes where you got in the car and you're like, I don't want to turn on the podcast, but I'm going to do it anyway. Or did it kind of feed and compounding, like you were eager to turn it on, or both?
I was eager to turn. I loved it because I feel like it took me on a journey and a story, and it just put me in the room with people that had been through dark places. I mean, he would share people's stories, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I understand that. I resonate with that. But then how they had victoriously pulled themselves out of this dark place in this life, because that's the other thing. It's very easy to feel like we're the only ones going through something.
Very true.
So many times. And I feel like that's another part of the victim mentality, is people may look at Jeffrey and I and think, wow, they just get handed a gold and silver spoon all the time, or, oh, they just must have a horseshoe up, their behinds. As you can tell there's so many parts of our story.
Right.
And so some people only see the gold and the glimmer.
Right.
But they don't see the dark hidden valleys that took us from going through that dark time. That's what took you to the mountaintop. Right. You have to go through those moments. If you don't have those moments, you don't know what a mountain peak is. Right. If you don't know that you were low, you don't know when you're high.
Right.
And so for me, listening to the podcast, like, that is something anybody can do. Instead of, going home and watching Netflix or binge watching some Love is Blind TV show, which everybody's watching right now, which is fine. Those moments are fine. We took those moments, and I took those moments to, man, I want to work on myself. And so
intentionality.
Yes.
Intentionality.
And I consumed, just hours and hours and hours and hours. And it helped me to spur on my own mindset and change my life. truly.
And I bet you it's funny how these things work. Every moment is always leading to your next moment in life. And it's going to affect in some way. So even back then, you're formulating things and you're learning things, your brain's developing, and then one day you're on a podcast articulating it. And little did you know at the time, maybe you were very intentional. You knew what you're trying to do, but you're also building this base layer of knowledge and strength. And I guess one of the analogs was what Jeff had done in his journey, because I guarantee you, we covered it. There was times when he didn't want to go out. You're looking in the mirror. He was set back so many times. He tried, he started, he failed. He tried, he started, he failed. The entrepreneurial thing that you guys, the endeavors you took with 212 and the difficulties there. And then it was losing the weight. Then it was like, oh, I have all this skin and I have to do the skin surgery. And then so would you say that inspired you somewhat too, is seeing that same development? Jeff kind of preceded you a little bit in that.
Oh, for sure. I say to people all the time, when people say, man, Jeffrey, you're so inspiring. If I'm in the room with them, I literally say, man, you're inspired by just seeing what was posted on social media. I got the opportunity to wake up next to him every single day.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Truly.
That's pretty cool, man.
It's, if you think he's inspiring, it's a whole nother level to be able to live with somebody and do life with somebody who literally spurs you on to become your better person for sure.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
yes.
So it was here you are with intentionality, tracking your food, and that is, I have found the same thing. I don't think I've been so rigorous in my attention to detail and how it affects my mood, but when I think back about it, and there have been times I have been intentional and somewhat, rigorous. And I have found that same thing, and there is data to support that in the scientific literature. The mental health got better from exercise, but also a lot from food. But were those the only goals in your transformation that you were seeking at that point, or were there other issues you were facing that you were hoping to get better in this body transformation and commitment to exercise and self-development journey that you were on?
Yeah. So I feel like it kind of went like step by step. Like my mental health got better because I cleaned up my diet. I was in the gym. I was physically looking better. I, had a lot of success in the gym, and was really like feeling more confident. But we had been married at this time probably 9 or 10 years. And I had always, since probably the day that we got married, had low libido. I just never had it. There had been multiple appointments that I had had with an OBGYN to discuss my issues and challenges because we were having a lot of hard conversations behind the scenes of like, hey, I love you, but like, this is an issue in our marriage. Like, why is it like this? Is it me? I mean, at one point Jeffrey was like, is it me? Like, and I'm like, no, like, I love you. You're my person. Like, I'm not getting any on the side. Like, there's nothing.
Yeah.
You have to kind of confront those hard conversations. I was like, I just, no desire. And even
this was even before kids, huh?
This was way before kids. Yes. This had always been an issue in our marriage. And so once he kind of got in better shape, like I thought, oh, maybe me going back to the gym and eating and cleaning up my diet, like all of these things
He was
would
probably
help.
like, look at me, I'm buff.
Yeah,
I'm buff now.
Look,
I'm just a bodybuilder. Like, come on, what's wrong? Yeah.
Yeah. And so it got to be, I think it was like January of 2022.
And how old were you when you got married? Just
we were 24.
24.
It's really young to be experiencing these issues,
We had been together for a really long time. We had dated for 7 years prior to getting married too.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so we basically had the hard conversation of like, listen, you've cleaned up your diet. You've been in the gym. You're crushing it. Like you've had a mindset shift. He's had a whole life shift. Like something isn't right. And so at this point, he was already kind of getting his hormones checked and seeing where he was at. And he was like, I feel like you need to go get your hormones checked.
Were your hormones low, Jeff, when you first got them checked?
Yeah, so after I lost 150 pounds, I lost the weight. I had my first skin removal surgery. That was July of 2022. I actually had a guy reach out to me who had a similar journey. And he said, hey, not trying to like get in your business, not trying to tell you what to do, but have you had your labs done and checked your hormones? He said,
a friend or somebody on
he's
social media?
a friend that I knew. He's actually who recommended me to go see Dr. Clayton Cranford. So he had actually had his skin removal done by Dr. Cranford, and so that was kind of the connection. And we knew each other for a long time. We did network marketing together, some other stuff. So he had reached out and just, congratulated me on all the success. I'd had my skin removal surgery, so I'd kind of been talking to him because obviously when you're going down that journey, there's not a lot of stuff on the internet that really talks about it, especially for men, right? There's tons of stuff. If you want to get your boobs done, if you want to get a facelift,
mommy makeover.
Like, those are all on
There's
YouTube.
so much information out there, but for guys, especially like gynecomastia surgery, skin removal surgery, like there's not a lot of people talking about it. And so I kind of went to him because he had it done. And I was like, hey, what was your experience like? All this stuff. And he just said, hey, look, I would highly suggest going and getting your lab work because when I lost a ton of weight, I got my labs done and my hormones were tanked. And so there's a lot of things that can affect that, right? When you are extreme dieting, when you lose a lot of weight in a relatively short amount of time, like you can absolutely crash your hormones. I mean, obviously, you know this as a doctor.
But also being obese.
Being obese your whole life.
And even seeing that you had the gynecomastia, like that's usually associated with high estrogen. Like
yeah. And so I said, you know what, that makes sense. And so I called my primary care doctor. I got set up. I had my yearly checkup coming in. And when I went in there, I've had my lab work done, went to the appointment. I was all excited, and we started going over my labs, and I said, can you tell me what my testosterone is? And he said, oh, we don't pull that. And I said, you didn't pull my testosterone? Like, this is my yearly checkup. And he said, no, if you want me to pull your testosterone, like, you just need to let me know. He's like, they had an in-house lab, and he's like, you can go right now, have them draw it. And he's like, I'll get your results in like 2 days. So I went back out, had my labs drawn, and I was never someone who got blood work done. I hated needles. And especially when you're like 350, 360 pounds,
and they can't find.
You don't have any veins. Like, no one can find anything. You're getting stuck multiple times. And so, at this point, I had the skin removal surgery. I was looking really good. This is the first time I saw my primary care doctor in over a year. He was like dumbfounded by the amount of weight that I had lost. And I had my hormones checked, and I never heard from him. And so, like, the labs got emailed to me, and I mean, labs are obviously complicated, and you need a physician to look at them with you, but there's also markers on your labs that indicate when things are low and when things are high.
Red and L's and like,
and,
very easy to look at.
And so I'm looking at the normal rating for men for testosterone, and I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, the normal range is 250 to 1100.
Yeah, that's roughly. I mean, it depends on the lab, but that's definitely
standard kind of range. And so mine was 256. And so in my mind, I'm like, that seems pretty low. Like, that doesn't seem like a great place to be at 35 years old. I think I was 34 actually, because I turned 35 like a couple months later.
And clearly doing all the right things, eating, exercising.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I reached out to him, because you could do it like via chat through the portal that I used, and his response was, if you're not under 250, so I was 7 points away from being 249. If you're not under 250, insurance doesn't cover it, and so I can't write you a prescription. And I thought to myself, well, I'm exercising daily, I'm eating perfect, I've lost all this weight, I still feel tired. I didn't struggle with lack of libido, but I was just tired. Recovery was really, really bad. Like, I would just be sore for forever after the gym. So lots of things. And I just said, that seems interesting. I can't imagine that testosterone replacement therapy would be
why that
expensive.
is? It's because the healthcare system, as we know it, is mostly designed to treat acute disease and help people survive. But we're in an era, especially
we don't want to prevent.
Right. Preventative care, but not even that. It's we just aren't set up and there's issues globally, but we live here, and it's definitely the case here that lack of disease does not mean wellness, right? And the majority of the healthcare system is set up to treat disease or prevent specific disease states, not optimize health, promote wellness. You're definitely going to have systems in place to help you survive, but not necessarily thrive.
Yeah,
and
I think
people want to move beyond just surviving. They want to thrive.
I think you need to say that again. I know I'm not the host of the show, but lack of disease does not equate to wellness.
Exactly.
That's like, I've never heard someone say it like that, but that is like profound, because just because you don't have some kind of crazy disease going on in your body doesn't mean that you're at the optimal health that you can be at.
And that's what I love about your story, because it highlights it so specifically. All the attention you got at the ER for your hypertensive urgency, clearly everybody was behind you with the obesity and losing weight. And then it was like, okay, he did it. But you were like, look, I want to be well. I want to be optimized. And now, not only have you done that, you're taking that to other people and helping them do it, which is amazing. It's fantastic. So how did you finally solve this problem?
Yeah. So I reached out to some friends that I had who I knew were taking testosterone replacement therapy. And basically they had all kind of had similar stories. Like, hey, I went to my primary care doctor. They didn't do anything for me. I sought out a hormone clinic. And this is before our relationship began. I don't even think you guys had opened up Body Revolution yet. And so I went to another clinic in Myrtle Beach, had my labs drawn. And it's funny because my primary care doctor was just like, oh, you don't need it. And they saw my labs and they're just like, dude, you're a mess. Like, we need to help you immediately. And so I began the journey of being on testosterone replacement therapy at a clinical dose, low dose, just to get my body back to where it needed to be. And I'm not going to say it was like this magical like thing that happened, but I noticed that my energy levels were starting to go back up. I noticed that my recovery in the gym was starting to improve, and I just started feeling better.
Right.
Now that was coupled with 5 days a week of strength training, cardio 5 to 6 days a week, eating really, really clean. So
thank you for saying that.
Yeah,
it's not a panacea.
that,
it's one component.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't think that just because you're going to go fix your hormones, you're going to change your entire life. Like there are many steps that you need to do in order to optimize your total health. But I started seeing really great results. I started feeling really good. And that is what led me to say to Lauren, like, maybe you should go get checked out. She didn't, I'm not going to name the clinic where I was going. She didn't want to go to that clinic. It had a very macho vibe to it.
Bro science vibe.
And, and so she decided to go to another clinic.
So here we are, you're dovetailing, right? So your experience starting to dovetail into his experience again.
Yeah.
And you guys and so he encourages you and you say, okay, I'll go. And so then what happens next?
Yeah. So, and just to kind of tell a little bit of my story just with the doctor's office, because he kind of shared with his primary care doctor. I mean, I had been for years going and seeing my OBGYN and, had lab work checked here and there. And basically would kind of explain like, hey, I have like no libido and it's very painful. I have very painful intercourse. And I basically got told, use more lube and foreplay. Every single time.
And didn't even offer to check.
No.
Just some random good
and
advice.
as a guy, I'm just like, guys, is my foreplay not good enough?
Is my foreplay game not up to snuff?
I
when
guess
I would relay the
message.
message,
He's getting out. He comes home. He's like reading the book.
He's like,
how do I? Okay.
Yes. So, yes. So
did he try? Did he in fact try? Did he try to get better with foreplay?
For sure.
We
tried a
multiple
lot.
Companies of different like CBD oils,
horny goat weed.
Like, I mean, I feel like we tried
a
lot of different.
He would
things.
come home with something.
Wait.
Okay,
CBD oils, like
a CBD type of lube that's like was supposed to like relax and like help and.
If you want to know, we've tried it.
Okay.
It didn't work. So.
Sorry, whatever that company was.
But. Yeah. So I was popping horny goat weed and all the things, and nothing was happening. But so I finally was like, all right, I'm doing all the things. It's time for, I have optimized my life in all the other areas. I want to feel normal, and this is not normal. So I went to a local hormone clinic. You guys were not open yet.
But you at one time thought it was normal, right?
Oh, I did.
And so I don't want to skip over that one part only because it's a really cool part of your story because I think a lot of women experience that. Can you just
1,000%
riff on that just a second? How you did at one point think that kind of was just normal,
I thought
right?
it was normal. I used to say to Jeffrey, I was like, okay, what do you expect this to be? Like, this is normal. This is how it's
Wow.
Well, even if you think about it in movies, like it's the men who are initiating.
Right.
I was like, women don't really initiate. I was like, if you go and ask your buddies, they're not having sex every day. And, like all the things.
Which is true. I mean,
which is probably true. But then Jeffrey always said to me, he said, I don't want to have a good marriage. I want to have an exceptional marriage, which we totally believe now.
That's good. Yeah.
And it was good. So, yeah. So, I mean, I totally thought it was normal. Like, I didn't really seek out conversation with other people. I also just thought like, oh, maybe they are. It's just me. Like, this is weird. Like, this is something that just I'm experiencing. And so I didn't talk about it with my friends. It wasn't really something that we talked about. It wasn't really something that I would go and Google or look at. Like, I just was like, it's just me. It's just how I am. This is just how it's always going to be. And so when I went to the doctor's office and had my labs drawn and saw my testosterone levels, I was like, okay, this is actually.
So they were pretty low.
It was low. I will say, so I had been doing everything and the doctor's office was very your labs, so at the time I was 34.
Had 2 children at this point?
I had 2 children and they were like, your labs look like a 21-year-old. I had done a lot of work to clean up my life.
Outside of hormones. The rest
of
the
hormones
panels looked good.
Yes. My basal metabolic rate and age was showing that I was 21 years old.
Wow.
My metabolic age. So just proof that you're talking about somebody that's doing everything perfectly. I was doing the thing.
And you were not dieting. You were eating a very clean, healthy lifestyle, whole foods, high protein. You were exercising 5 days a week. You were drinking a gallon of water a day. You were doing cardio. You were sharp. You were doing everything that anyone could possibly do at a high level to be as perfect as possible in optimizing health.
Yeah. And so at that time, honestly, the doctor was like, I mean, you could get on testosterone, but like honestly, like your muscle mass looks great. And so I kind of had to like, no, like I'm struggling in the bedroom. And like I've literally optimized every single part of my life. I want this part to be exceptional too. And so he prescribed me a cream, and I started a testosterone cream. And I was nervous.
Oh, really? What were you nervous about?
Well, you hear about side effects of acne, facial hair, deepening of your voice, like
masculinizing.
Say that again.
Say that again. All of these things, and I'm just, it's not a conversation that's out there very much.
Yeah.
And so while I thought it was semi-normal because my husband was going through it, I'm sure that there were family members that were like, okay, now we're doing the cream thing. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Was it shocking to you to think that you needed testosterone? Or, I mean, or were you pretty well educated and you kind of knew, meaning maybe the average woman wouldn't even think about testosterone and they might think it's even a male hormone when anything can be further from the truth.
That is definitely a misconception that is not talked about. I think was
that a misconception for you at this time?
Not
prior
really.
To this?
Because
but you do see
years
that
ago, yes.
Yeah.
But now understanding through bodybuilding, through honestly just like my own sexual health, and just the holistic care, and even like our relationship with Body Revolution Wellness, like I have learned so much. But at this time, no, I wasn't like concerned. Okay. I just was like, I really don't want to have side effects.
Right. Okay.
And so I started with a cream, and at that time I was applying 1 pump daily. And I'm the worst with like remembering to take things. And so I started it, I think I remember starting it a couple of weeks before Jeffrey's actual first bodybuilding competition. And I was kind of sporadic with it. And now I've learned after being on hormones for so long, and you are going to have side effects if you are not consistent with it. Like I would notice that like my body odor, like if I had missed a day, I would notice that I had more like body odor in the gym. I'm like, oh, I smell musky today, and so I would notice like hormonal acne, like around my face and different things that Jeffrey was like, okay, you've got to be consistent with it. Is it working? What is happening? And so I honestly did the creams for like 8 months.
And as I recall, when I got involved to help you with this and Discerning Labs, it was something like, remind me if this is how you recall it too, but it was something like the effect just wasn't there. And we said, let's go straight to the source and look at your serum. Let's look at your blood.
Yes.
And, it just didn't really change the number, not in a significant way to where you would see clinical effects and cellular physiologic effects. And it was something like, okay, well, let's double the dose and then it was multiple times a day. We redraw it. We weren't seeing effects in the blood, right?
You guys had opened, and I had just been with this other clinic, and I literally like texted Morgan like, oh my gosh, I would like to go with you guys. Obviously, like just knowing you.
Yeah.
And also you just feel more comfortable for me to say like, hey, I'm struggling. Like, can you guys help? I'm struggling, you know? And so started working with you guys, wanted to stick with my current route. We had talked about the pellet route, but because I was planning on competing in bikini, I was like, I just don't want any type of, I don't want to see anything up on stage. I'm basically up wearing a thong. I just didn't want to go that route yet.
Absolutely agree. 100%.
And so we stuck with the cream, but had checked my levels and I still was tanked.
Yeah.
Tanked.
That was an eye-opening moment.
Yes.
These
because
creams,
I'm like, I'm not absorbing. So then we're like, let's just.
Or you're absorbing and quickly metabolizing too. That's another thing that can happen too.
Yeah. So we went to like some obscene amount of cream. So I was doing 3 pumps 3 times a day. So it's a cream and you have to apply it on the inside of your leg. Y'all, it was like I was putting sunscreen on my leg. I'm like, I'm having to rub it down to like my calves.
We'd
be
in the middle of like, we'd be pulling up to the gym and Lauren would be pulling her pants down in the car. Like, I got to put my cream on real fast. And I'm like, what is happening right now? I do want to sidebar since we are getting into like a sexual health topic on this, because I feel like that was what you were really seeking. You started the cream. We both got in really good shape. At this point, I was starting to do bodybuilding. You had not started yet, but you were like in really good shape. We were both doing everything we could do to optimize our health. and our sex life did get better.
It was better.
It was getting better. It like we went from like sex like once a week or every other week to like, you know, it was 2 or 3 times a week. Now, obviously, like you have kids, like there are different circumstances like that cause things to like, you may even want it, but you're just like, look, the kids are here, or I'm tired, or like this. You just can't strategically make it happen. Yeah. So I'm not even talking about it from that standpoint, but like things had gotten better. The cream had like maybe bumped you up a smidge. But
gave you some benefit, but not
give
quite
you the results that you were like hoping for.
Was intercourse less painful?
It was less painful. I still had some dryness, and we used a lot of lubricant.
Okay.
Still.
All right. So she's riding up to the gym, rubbing it on her legs, ankles, her butt, everywhere.
I'm having 3
to pumps 3 times a day. This is getting crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So we kind of had to figure out.
So after all that, we said, you were like, let's check it. Let's do this amount of cream for this long. And so we did that, and we checked my levels. And I'll never forget, we were at the gym, and you like called me or like sent over the labs. And I was like,
I was shocked out of my mind. Yeah.
I had been doing all this work, everything. I mean, still, you have to remember, I'm eating the right foods. I'm doing everything perfectly.
This was post your show. So you had already done bodybuilding.
Yes.
So you went through, did a whole competition. You did an entire prep. We were post prep.
That's right.
You were you were trying to like a lot of stuff too. And this is tough because if you don't do bodybuilding, like whether you're on testosterone, whether you're not on testosterone, when you compete at a high level, you're going to tank your hormones no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're doing replacement, if you're not doing replacement. The diet is so
extreme.
You're going to crash your testosterone. You're going to crash your estrogen, your thyroid.
Not to mention your adrenal hormones too. Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are going to happen. And so you were also kind of like recovering from prep. So I think there was a lot of just like back and forth of like checking labs and all right, we got to get you. Your
that's for sure. And she felt like, as I recall, she felt like literally, am I going crazy? I'm like, no, I believe it's your hormones.
Yep.
And there is that adrenal burnout and letdown. There is those other hormones that have kind of definitely your ovarian hormones. Well, they're all ovarian hormones, the sex hormones, but your estrogen, progesterone definitely changed with varying degrees of body fat and also exercise. You're absolutely right, Jeff. And she was like in crisis mode. We checked, and despite the creams and doing more, your levels were just
they weren't coming back up.
Everything else had come back up. But what I think was so awesome about you guys is, so even like coaches that I've had were like, no, it's post show. Don't check your labs until 6 weeks out. They're going to be a mess. I'm like, no, like I'm working with a doctor who knows that I just kind of purposely crashed my hormones because I had to get to a low percentage body fat to step on the stage. I want to see where I'm at.
Right.
And I feel insane in my head. Like it was a moment where I think I said to you, Jason, I was like, I don't really want to be in the room with myself. I don't feel like myself. But we knew that's, when you, as women, hormones are so important, and body fat percentage is so important. Our fats and the amount of fats that we eat and the body fat percentage that we hold on our body regulates our hormones. Right. And so while sometimes we think it's annoying because we have a lower pooch belly fat, those things are important and vital to us. Yes, you can decrease them, but it can be important to your health. And so while we rechecked the labs after I did the creams, everything else looked good. Everything had come up, but my testosterone was still in the tank.
Yeah.
And so it was at that time that we were like, we'd heard other women trying sub-Q injections.
Yeah.
And I was very nervous.
I was a little nervous because I'd had a bad experience with that in the past, but we went to the research, we looked it up, we looked at some protocols. You were trusting of me. I was open and said, hey, I'm not as experienced in the sub-Q, except for the bad experience I'd had in the past, but here are the protocols, and we kind of did it together, teamed up. And I think that was a good model, because I hope that you found that to be the case. But for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to be able to give Lauren and Jeff, and specifically in this case, Lauren, some agency here. I'm just going to tell her. And I think it was good to be honest and say, hey, this is just a little skosh out of my realm of comfort, but here's the science that backs this up. Let's look at this together. How do you feel? Let's go in this together. All four of us, Morgan, we all kind of drove in together and held hands, but it worked out really well. And I've learned from you. You guys taught me too, and that was really cool. And this is absolutely a good alternative. And you're talking about micro doses, but for women, that's all they need. And how do you feel so far on the subcutaneous injections?
So many things I want to say.
Yeah, I know. Shall we tell them what you said when you came over the house?
Do we play Marvin Gaye now? Like, what do we do? Okay, so
Let's just say Lauren has a hard time keeping her
Let's
hands
get
off.
it on.
Let's get it on. Okay, life changing. So we literally
Not an exaggeration at all.
No,
because I can
not
just tell on your
not.
face.
I mean,
yeah.
we had sex every single day for like a month.
Yeah.
I was getting worn out.
Jeff's like, oh my gosh, okay.
But I share that to like not be like, oh wow, look at them. You know, they travel the world and they have the availability to have to. It was like good and it wasn't painful, and I was like, wow,
and the desire was there.
The desire was there.
And you said to me, "What is this? How it's supposed to be like?" And that was the thing that really caught me. Was like, hey, this was my old life. This is my new life. This was my old marriage. This is my new marriage. And is this what I've been missing? And is this weird? No, this is actually how it could and should be. Yes. How it should and could be. I want to have an excellent marriage. And that was inspiring.
It was life. It was seriously like I could have just like, I felt like we came over and I just like, I wanted to give you guys hugs. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I had been seeking that from physicians.
Right.
Wanting them to listen to me and maybe say, hey, this is a little out of my comfort zone or realm, but like, I'm willing to try
Yeah,
this
did that
with you.
detract at all? I mean, I would, I got to say as a physician, you don't ever want to say, I don't know, but that's the reality.
I would rather them just say, here's what we do for people.
Right.
Hope it works for you.
Yeah.
See you later.
Good luck.
Too,
yeah.
I can remember driving home, like after we were talking about it, and Lauren said, you know what I love about Jason is like, he's just honest. Like he just will let you know like, hey, this isn't something that I've really done before, but I will go do the research. I will read, I will study, I will figure out a protocol. And if you trust me, we will go down this journey together. And I think honestly, that's why we've referred so many people to you guys because we know you're not just like checking a box and saying, hey, like this should work. You're like, no, like, hey, these are the things that I know. These are where I feel very, very comfortable. And this is where I don't feel comfortable, but I'm willing to educate myself. And I feel like that's what has made us so successful is if we don't know something, we figure out who knows it and we learn it and then we can help people. And so I think, honestly, I think that made her feel even more comfortable. The fact that you didn't know, which is
isn't that interesting? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, because I just felt like you were being real, but also like we're people, and my symptoms might be different than this other person's symptoms, and their side effects might be, anything might be different. And I feel like you have just like this perfect way of like actually actively listening, and then okay, yeah, let's work on that. Let's come up with a solution. What would you like? You involve us as a patient in our own care and educate us enough so that we feel like we can make the best educated decision instead of just slapping your education or your opinion onto us.
Right.
You allow us to do that in an educated way. I mean, like I said, there's not many physicians that allow bodybuilders to check their labs as often or during a prep or work through like, hey, yeah, my hormones have crashed. I understand that. Let's work through this. Can we try this? Can we do this? And so after I had this moment, like, yes, we have referred so many people to you guys because I'm like, oh my gosh, they've changed our lives. Like, and so it's kind of like sparked this entire passion of like, man, like we've gone after our health and fitness, but like, man, now we just tackled our marriage and our sex life and like how eye-opening and changing and life-changing that is. So I started to have more conversation with women in my community and the clients that we were coaching. And I was just like, hey, I kind of just put my hand up of like, not sure if anybody else is feeling this, but like I felt low libido, or I love this. I felt like I was having painful intercourse, or I felt like society was telling me that sex is shameful and that I shouldn't enjoy it. And I must be a porn star if I enjoy sex. And I started to put my hand up and kind of like call BS on what society said for women's health. And the outpouring that I received from women has been so shocking. And it was for the first time in my life that I realized I wasn't the only one. I'm not the only one. There's so many women who have my story, so many marriages that have our story. And now I'm like, I have to share our story with the world.
Yeah. And I love, and it to me, it harkens back to this concept that's now old if you're into this space and niche, and Brene Brown, vulnerability. And so Jeff's being vulnerable and he's saying, hey, and doing it in a loving way, not pushing you too hard. And he's saying, we got to fix something. You're being vulnerable, saying, hey, I'm having these thoughts. But the strength that comes out of it, like you, and you know, it inspires me, and you're learning from me and I'm learning from you guys, and your story, and just saying, I didn't talk about this before. It was something I felt shameful about. It was something I thought was normal. I didn't think, and now to be vulnerable and say, okay, like I don't really want to talk. It's not something that you know, sex used to be whatever. It's not like but it's the strength and the transformation that came out of that vulnerability that is so inspiring. You just can't ignore it.
Yeah.
And I love that fact because it's really been inspirational to me to see how inspirational your story is for so many women. And Jeff's too, in a different way for guys and for women, by the way, just losing weight and achieving goals. But it's pretty rare that a guy would struggle with their libido or knowing or wanting, you know, but for women, it's a very complex issue and it's not talked about. And you've just lowered that barrier. You're reaching out. Women are obviously resonating with it. I use your story all the time. You've given me permission in certain specifics cases to mention it. And my gosh, it resonates with women like you. Well, I'll say like you wouldn't believe, but no, you would because it's happened to you every day.
Yeah.
And
it's shocking. It's like we used to think she was the only one, but comes found out like almost all the women we've talked to have her same story. Like I would say there are more women that are struggling with sexual desire, dryness, painful intercourse, like all of these things than are not.
Yeah.
From the conversations that we've had, and at this point we've had a lot of conversations.
Right.
And I think exactly what you were talking about, the vulnerability. And even honestly, this kind of like wraps our entire story. If people would lean into more of their own, what they think is a downfall or their most insecure thing or their deepest vulnerability, that could be your strongest point in passion and could change most people's lives. You just have to lean into it and go, you know what? I'm feeling this. I bet there's other people that feel this. I'm going to work on this and get this better. And then I'm going to share this with the world. And I think from our, just in general, with being overweight, low sex drive, like mental health illness, like there's so many things, like these were dark days. And we could have easily just been like, man, we're fat. We have health issues. We have this mental health issue. Man, we have a sexless marriage. Like, man, look at us. This is hard. Life is hard. No, we looked at it and we were like, man, this is hard, but we need to fix this. This can be better. Let's optimize this. And now we've changed it. We've optimized. And now we share it with the world to help other people.
You know what's really cool, though, too, is that you guys were vulnerable. You allowed yourselves to be vulnerable, found strength in that because there is strength in that. And there's an outreach or like a fractal that comes out of that, as Simon Sinek talks about in his analysis of Marines. He was given obviously more articulate and researched and written the book or multiple books, but there was a scenario he was talking about when they're on a long run and they're struggling. They don't say, I can't do it. They say, it's something like, I need help or I need motivation. They reach out for help, basically. And the team around immediately responds and they know this is the expectation we set. Okay, come on, Jeff, hoorah. Whatever, they start their cadence marching. They do whatever. They help this individual. So, and where I'm going with this is the really cool thing was Jeff reached out to the friend for more information. He reached out to people around him to help him. Now, a lot of this was self-driven too. You had initial self-motivating thought of being mindful and doing these things, but then you reached out to Jeff to help you say, hey, I'm having trouble with these thoughts. You reached out to us. And that inspired me to reach back out to you and say, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just saying, for whatever reason, it will now be more intentional, but I don't know that it was so intentional back then. Maybe it was, but I said, look, I'm going to be vulnerable and tell you what I know, what I don't know, but I'm going to reach out to you and say, I will do the work. I will do the research. I will look into this, and I'm going to reach out to you to trust me. And so I need your help in that. I need you to go through this with me as a patient. Mm-hmm. But humans are meant to help each other. Now, that is an odd thing to do, especially for a guy, because I don't think it's natural for guys as much. You tell me, Jeff. And for women, it may be more natural, but it's not always easy. And maybe it's not natural for me. I don't know, but I can only speak as a guy. But when you do, you tap into that social network of what is uniquely human, and that is that we are created to help or design or evolve. It doesn't matter, to help each other, and we function as a society best when we're helping each other. And if you're vulnerable, and then you reach out, you avail yourself of that strength, and that's a strategy that's smart, to the point where we've talked about this entrepreneurial conversations and the things that you guys have done and how inspiring it is to me. Just the other day, in fact, I was almost at the point, I got through it, but I had this dark thought of an entrepreneurial struggles I was working with and tough. And I almost called you guys to say, hey, I just need to talk. But it was really cool to get to know you guys on that level, that I could even have that thought, because I've never had that thought before, really. Maybe with my brother or something, or family, and Morgan for sure. But like you said, reaching out to people that are in the same boat and that want to uplift you and help you. But you only do that when you get vulnerable, and you only get that when you extend out the hand for help. And you guys are living examples of that. Does that resonate with you? Because that's what I see. Do you guys see that too?
Oh, yeah. I mean, as you can hear our story, we have now come to a place where we realize everything we've ever gone through in life and everything we've ever overcome or been through or experienced is so that we can help someone else. Everything that we've ever done, all the businesses that we've had, all of the hardships, the struggles, the life obstacles that we had, we walked through those trenches so that we can help somebody else. And that's we're living our passion right now. And people can see and hear our passion. I hear that every day. People say, gosh, you're so passionate. How did you find your passion? We walked through hard circumstances. We found our vulnerabilities. And now we reach out to people that are dealing with those things and we help them.
Right.
And that, to us, we have one life. Like, we feel like every single day we get to help somebody else. Like, it just feels like so rewarding.
Right. And that's what it means to be human. And that's part of living in a flow state and part of fulfillment.
It's so fulfilled. I mean, truly.
I think the biggest takeaway too that I've seen, and I noticed this when I started 75 Hard. So go back 3 years ago, I actually heard Sal Fursilla, who's Andy Fursilla's brother, who is the president of First Form. He talked about when everything really changed for him and he started to really help people is when he got super vulnerable, but super vulnerable in the process. And so I think that's a big point here, is that it's one thing to be vulnerable once you get to the other side.
Right.
But to be vulnerable while you're going through the struggle is actually what connects people.
Yes.
And is actually what changes people's lives. And so when I started 75 Hard, I knew that at the end of 75 days, I was going to do something that I had never done in 34 years of my life. And that was post a picture on the internet with me shirtless. And I had never taken my shirt off at a beach. We had been together.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like no one.
We went swimming. He always had he wore like a Spanx compression shirt. And always, like, in the pool, he had a shirt on.
I always had a shirt on. But no one in my life
had ever seen him.
Like my parents, her parents, like we vacationed together. My own brother, who's my business partner, we would travel together. Like I never, like I changed in the bathroom. Always wore a shirt. Always wore a shirt to the beach, to the pool. And so I knew that it was finally going to be time for me to tackle my biggest, what I thought was hurdle and fear. And that was being shirtless, because I had struggled with having man boobs and like being overweight. And so it's funny, I posted my before and after picture on 75 Hard. And if you look at the before picture, like obviously the before picture is really bad. You guys have seen it. But if you look at the after picture, there was change, but it was still a very embarrassing picture. I still had man boobs, and my stomach was still big, and I still had loose skin.
I mean,
I hadn't, 75 Hard, I only lost 43 pounds. And you're talking about, I've lost 162 pounds.
That's still a lot of weight.
It's a lot, but I'm saying for someone who
it was just the beginning.
For someone who needed to lose 160 pounds, 42 pounds is you're just starting the journey.
Yeah.
But what I learned is when I posted that picture, it's this kind of relates back to your mental health side of stuff. When your thoughts don't align with your actions, that is where the disconnect happens, and that is why you have intrusive thoughts. That's why you feel bad about yourself.
That's so true.
And so when I posted that picture, it was the first time in my life that my thoughts and my actions aligned. And so I was no longer embarrassed by the photo, because I didn't care what anyone thought, because I knew, hey, I'm doing the work that's required to change my life. And if you judge me, that's on you. Whereas before, I was just a fat slob. And so if you judge me, yeah, I judged myself because I wasn't willing to put in the work. And so I think that if you have something in your life that you're struggling with, but you know you're doing what it takes to fix it, you should start documenting the journey and sharing it, because you will absolutely inspire people to change. And so
you were already successful, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like kind of like Earl Nightingale talks about success as the progressive realization of a worthy goal. Like you weren't there at your goal. You were
Right. But
progressively
in my mind,
realizing it.
I was like,
But
hey,
you were
I'm a
finally,
new person.
yeah, you were finally consistent in connecting the thoughts. I'm going to do it. I say I'm going to do it. And now I'm actually doing it. If you want to judge me, that's on you, but I'm doing it, man.
Right.
That
And
is
so
phenomenal.
as I started posting those photos, and now fast forward to 3 years down the journey, like I get flooded with messages from other guys asking me about gynecomastia, asking me about man boobs. Hey, how did you get rid of this? How did you do this? And like the conversations that I have are wild about how many people out there are struggling with the exact same thing. And if I would have never been vulnerable and shared the entire journey, I think that my credibility would be a lot less, because people would just say, oh, well, good for you. You lost a bunch of weight and you got in good shape. But if you look at my social media, for 3 years, I documented every single part of that journey. I documented the struggle. I documented doing the workouts and talking to the camera and being like, this sucks. And like, I feel like I'm going to die. And like, I'm crying on a run. And like, I documented all of that. And so, it wasn't easy to do in the moment, but looking back, I'm so thankful that I documented it. I'm so thankful that I took a photo every single day. I'm so thankful that I posted Instagram stories and made videos, because it now has inspired millions of people, which is mind-boggling. So I think if you're in this journey, number one, you have to make the decision to change your life. Like you can't, you will never stop being the victim if you continue to play the victim. Like you have to have the realization of like, I'm going to take every step necessary to change my life. But once you start doing the actionable steps and they align with your goal, start sharing with people, because you never know who you're going to inspire to change their life along the way.
And that's what it's really about, right?
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. What would you, so I'm imagining this, and Lauren, same for you. Obviously, you started sharing the photos, but you hadn't achieved the goal. You hadn't. I mean, it's one thing to, and I'm not downplaying this, but Sal Frisella is right. It's one thing to be vulnerable and post hoc, right? Who wouldn't want to? I'm the summer shredding champion. I did the regional. I did and those are phenomenal achievements, and they are. But as human beings, it's got to be easier. But in the middle, when nobody was really supporting you, and I guarantee you, and you probably could tell me specific instances, but that's when you get hated on. Okay, whatever, Jeff, you're just a fat dude, man. Come on, it's just how it is. Just quit. No, look at you. Look at how bad you look with the skin sagging.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody said that, but you even said like, okay, I did have man boobs and I was quote unquote fat, and I felt like crap, and now I've traded for looking kind of crappy in a different way. I'm having to deal with all this loose skin, but I'm going to keep going. It's dark. I'm crying on the runs, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. You've kind of already told us, but just to kind of distill it down to a couple sentences, even if you can, and Lauren too, what carried you through those dark times when there was no X amount of views and followers? There wasn't, you guys had each other for sure, and maybe that was big.
Yeah.
What sustained you during those dark times and made you keep going?
I think it's really building your mindset. I think mindset is such an important thing. And I know I talk about 75 Hard a ton, but that program literally changed everything for me, because I think it showed me that if I would just keep a promise to myself, I could do anything. And I think so many people, that is their issue, is they don't keep promises to themselves. And the more you don't keep promises to yourselves, the more subconsciously you tell your brain it's okay to break the promise. And our brains are crazy. Like even with food, you can rewire your brain to not like sugar. Like I've definitely had a point in my life where like I thought that sugary food tasted like absolute trash and pineapple tasted 10 times better. And it's funny, if you slowly start to reintroduce the bad things, eventually you're going to reprogram to where it's like, donut tastes pretty good. So this is not a lifelong, like it doesn't stick forever. Like this is a trained daily discipline habit that you have to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's why 75 Hard was so good for me and the Live Hard program, because it's not a challenge. Like, so many people are like, oh, I'm doing 75 hard challenge. Like, it's not a challenge. Like, get it right. It is a program that is meant for you to do for the rest of your life. And I've carried those tasks and those things through my entire life, whether that was actually being on the program or doing bodybuilding or doing prep. And I know now that when I start to slip and I start to feel this, like, getting a little bit too comfortable, I can go back to that program and be like, you know what? I'm going to start doing my outdoor workout every day. I'm going to start reading 10 pages again of personal development because I want to feed my mind. I'm going to start tracking my food purposely with intention. And these are all little daily disciplines that you stack up over time.
It's the discipline and the keeping the promise to yourself. And that resonates with me. I recently had, entrepreneurial, as you know, it's an up and down roller coaster. In this rule of thirds, I heard about 30% of the time it's good. And I don't even think it's that high, but 30% of the time it's okay. And 30% is just completely dark and desperate. It's probably, I think that's more of what it is, at least in the early days. And, even with the podcast that we're on right now today, there was a time where I was like caving and like, I'm kind of running out of topics. I don't know. And it sounds like fun. We're going to do it. But then you push through. There was a time, and there's been many times entrepreneurially with Morgan and I, we left Florida where we had a wellness center. Now we left for other reasons, but it was easy to come up with these excuses and change the narrative. But I recently said to her, and you look at things and I was doing surgery. Yeah, you never saw your family and you were working really hard. You were unhealthy. It was not good for your lifestyle, your marriage, your kids, but there was the financial security. And you kind of think, oh, well, maybe we should go back to that. And you come up with all these reasons why you should or shouldn't do it on both sides of the equation. And finally, I just got to the point where I was like, this is in the last month even, I had this thought. And I'm glad you articulate this way. And thanks for bearing with me on this little tirade. But it was like, okay, I'm going to do it because I said I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the only reason that we need. And I looked over at Morgan and I said, we said we're going to do this, so we're going to do this. We're not going to be people that don't say, but we made a promise. We're going to keep that promise to ourselves. And I said, remind me of this if I ever am doubting things. And she had to, and it helped me. And you're right. It was that promise that I made to myself or to her, or we made together. And we're going to do what we said we're going to do. You've heard that expression of burning the boats.
Yeah.
And so you have nowhere to go back. And I said, and that was my burn the boat moment where I said, I'm going to do this because I said I'm going to do it. And that I don't need any other reason. I need to keep my promise to myself. Now I'm going to articulate it that way. But, And so that was really good. Does that sound kind of what you're describing a little bit?
1,000%. I mean, literally when I started 75 Hard, the struggle I always had was keeping the promise to myself, especially when it came to health and wellness. Like, I had yo-yoed my entire life. Prior to 75 Hard, I had already had a run where I'd lost almost 100 pounds, and I gained it all back because I never put in the work to change my mind. Like, I just, I'm going to diet to this date. Like, I always had this, like, when I hit this level, like, and for us, it was I think I talked about it on the first part of the podcast, but it was a family cruise. It was like, I just want to get in shape for this cruise. And then that was it. And then I'm going to go back to eating the same way I used to eat. It's like, you can't, in anything you do, you can't go back to the way you used to be. You have to become a new person. And so my burn the ship moment was when I started 75 Hard. Which don't get me wrong, I didn't have like this crazy following. So it wasn't like all these people were counting on me, but I made a post that basically said, like, I'm doing this and I'm going to document it every day. And at the end, I'm going to show you what I look like. That was my burn the ship moment, because I don't care if one person was watching or a million people were watching. I was scared to death to post that photo. And that was my burn the ship moment. I said, you said you're going to post the photo. You've got to post the photo. And that drove me to go as hard as possible. And it's funny, you talk about business and like, is it the right thing? Should I go back and do this? What's the easier way to make money?
Right.
All these different things. And people look at entrepreneurship. They look at people who've had massive weight loss transformation. They look at people who are bodybuilders. They look at people who are high level anything, and they just say, oh, it must be nice.
Right.
No one sees the grind. Like, since this podcast has taken us so many different episodes, it's been over a couple weeks that we've kind of made these parts.
Just that. You're right. Just the grind to get this podcast done. Exactly.
And
3-part podcast.
What's really crazy is I've literally been posting on social media every day for 3 years. Every day I've posted a video, and I've almost pretty much been sharing the same story of like, hey, you can do it. Like, go after your dreams. Like, here's me losing weight. Here's the first phase of 75 hard. Here's phase 1 of live hard. Here's phase 2, phase 3. Here's my skin removal surgery. Here is me doing my first ever bodybuilding show. Here is me doing my second and winning it. Like, I've literally documented everything. And like, I've had people following me and watching me, but nothing to where you would be like, oh wow, you crushed it. Like that was worth the time and the effort and the sacrifice of.
Yet you continue to do it.
But I just kept doing it every single day. And what happens last week? I post a very similar video of the same story I've been telling for 3 years, and I go viral, and it hits 7 million views.
It's insane.
And because of that, there's been so many wild, crazy connections that have come out in the last week, and we won't go into any of that on the podcast. But
stay tuned, everybody.
I'm just saying that it's like people may look at that and be like, "Dang, that's crazy!" Like
you just made a video and it went viral.
Yeah.
People are rewarded in public for what they do in private.
Yes.
And then there's just is in life a certain amount of entropy that you have got to overcome. There's a certain amount of friction to get the ball rolling, whatever it is. And you got to stick to it until you overcome it, or else you never will. And it sounds to me like that was a big way of doing it, was keeping a promise to yourself. Lauren, did you have a burn the boats moment?
Yeah. So I honestly feel like I can be very results driven and like think about, okay, I want to land here. Like, how do we just get there very fast? And I think one of my things that has kept me in burn the boats, but like keep going no matter what's going on, is like I've gotten so fine-tuned and into loving the journey and not the destination.
The process, right? Yeah, that is.
And honestly, like we coach our clients to that. Stop being so hyper-focused on results. When you're hyper-focused on results and it doesn't happen on your timing, you give up and you want to go back. But what does that give you? That gives you no further than you were,
right.
Puts you back. You have to become obsessed with becoming 1% better than you were yesterday.
Oh,
and so life is going to happen. Like there are going to be days where, everything kind of feels like it crumbles.
Mm-hmm.
And you may need to reevaluate what you did that day. How did you handle that? Did you binge eat some tortilla chips in the pantry? That was off plan. Okay, what made you do that? Did you feel like you needed a warm hug on the inside?
Yeah.
What could you do differently tomorrow when you start to feel like, hey, the world's caving in? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you become so addicted to the journey and the process that somehow you just keep getting results? But I feel like things happen in life for us now. Like, yes, it does look like, okay, things are happening for us, but it's so right. We've been putting in the work for so long. So he was posting on social media. I've been posting on social media for 3 years, my workouts. Did anybody watch? I don't know. I would have women like reach out.
I mean,
like at the gym, I just posted, and this was like group fitness. It's not like I was just at the gym by myself. This is just group fitness. So other people are working out behind me, and I just propped it up on my water bottle and filmed myself at each workout station and would post it. I didn't even have any crazy, but I just was like, here's me, here's the journey. And I've had so many, some people would message me and that would kind of keep me posting, but I would have women that still know how to say like, I love seeing your workout videos. And I'm like, you do? Okay, I'll keep posting,
And what's crazy too about that is you don't realize how many people are actually watching you
silently
until you quote unquote like make it. And so like when stuff started to really blow up for us after winning Summer Shredding, and like we launched our coaching business, and then things with my Instagram went crazy, like now all of a sudden there's like all these people coming out of the woodwork and they're like, I've been following you for the last 3 years. Now just feels like the right time to reach out. And so it's so interesting because it's like, in the moment you're just like, like, is any of this even worth it? Like, am I helping anybody? Am I inspiring anybody? And that to me is truly the intention that you have to have. Like, would I love a big platform and like all of that stuff? Like, absolutely. But it all comes down to a real place of like, I just genuinely want to help people.
Right.
And I think when you have that intention, people feel that and it relates well with people. And if you make that your focus and you just constantly share your journey and share your story, don't try and be somebody else, you will eventually inspire people. And you may get to a level of a Tony Robbins where you inspire millions and millions of people, or you may just be like the guy who inspires change inside of your family, but that may trickle down, 2 generations and you don't even get to see the impact that you've made on those people. But who cares? Like, at the end of the day, your job is to just leave people better than you found them.
Boom. What you just said. I was thinking the exact same thing, because Jordan Peterson, I remember listening to kind of, I think it was Jordan Peterson. And again, I'm very much paraphrasing, so I don't want to say I'm copying word for word what he's saying, but it was something like talking about the meaning of life and what's it all about. And I can't remember how he said it or what it was, but the takeaway that I got was, if you can come into this world and then leave this world a better place than you found it, you've won the game of life. And
sure.
And that's literally what you just said. So,
yeah, and I think if you get out of the headspace of like, oh, it only matters if I inspire millions.
Right.
Like,
it only matters if I become the next Tony Robbins. It
Yeah,
only matters if I become whatever.
those are few and far between. And
Right.
yes, if you become that, great. That's
Right.
amazing, and you have a bigger platform to help people. But if you don't become that and you just inspire like the close 5 people that are in your circle,
Right.
just the ripple effect is insane.
It's insane.
And 9 times out of 10 we'll never get to see what it actually is.
Right. If everybody in the world was doing that, and we're all trying to
We
leave
would change the world.
we changed the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. That's awesome, guys. Well, this has been fantastic. We'll have to have it. We'll have to do it again. There's more.
Part 4.
Part 4. There's more. There's more.
So much more to come.
Or just come back and we share updates from time to time if you're willing to do that.
Yeah.
Loved having you on. Very inspiring on so many levels. And I can't wait to see what's next for you guys. I know you have big plans and reaching out and helping people in new and exciting ways through social media and other programs that you guys are doing, other entrepreneurial pursuits. If people want to connect with you and get to know you better, find out the good work you're doing on social media and in your local communities and in your regional now national communities, where can they reach you guys?
I think best place probably for both of us is Instagram. So my Instagram is just my name, Jeffrey Jensen.
Slide into your DMs.
Yes.
Yeah, shoot us a message. All of our coaching information and anything that you want to know about us is linked in Instagram.
I think that the producers got them linked down at the bottom for you guys to follow, and our YouTube channel. So we have a
Our
YouTube
channel
channel.
needs some help. So if you want to subscribe,
Yeah.
and just so you know, you don't have to pay for a subscription. We learned randomly from some people that were following us. They wanted to watch our try-on haul for Alphalete, and they said, do I have to subscribe or can I just watch it? And Lauren said, well, we'd love for you to subscribe. It's free. And they said, oh, I thought you had to pay.
They thought it was like
wow.
a Netflix subscription. We're like,
so
no,
YouTube
you
is
just
free if you didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think they might should change that word. But yeah, follow us
Subscribe
on
and then you
Instagram.
can get updates. And
Yeah. And follow our journey. You can see all of Jeffrey's journey on YouTube, also in our Instagram, and then in our link tree. So once you click on our Instagram, you'll be able to click our link, and it's got all of our stuff for our coaching and ways to contact us.
How will people keep track of and be aware of and kind of tune into what's next for you guys? Because I know you got a ton of
Yeah.
really
a
exciting
lot
stuff that
of
I'm
really
super
exciting
excited about. And it, like you said, it's a journey. It doesn't start here. 1% better every day. Even, if you reached such and such goal, the goal should really be never ending as we live life. And that leads to a fulfilling life. Ed Milet talks about that, this blissful dissatisfaction, he calls it, or something like that. Where will they follow you to learn those things? The same place? Or
Instagram. I think Instagram's kind of the main focus for us.
You'll be dropping
now.
that information
So
there?
yeah, anything that's coming up, all the new, really exciting stuff that's coming around the corner, we'll put out on Instagram first.
And we're looking at 212 meal prep, the coaching and macros, dieting, entrepreneurship, the Alphalete exclusive drops with the discount codes. And so much more, obviously.
Yeah, lots of other exciting things coming soon.
Awesome.
So much more.
Very
Thank
cool,
you so
guys.
much. And I just want to say thank you so much to Body Revolution and what you're doing in our community. I know that we are brand ambassadors, but we talk on a daily basis about how much you guys are changing people's lives with hormones, with weight loss, with aesthetics. We love being able to have a place that we can send patients and know that they're going to get the same passionate care.
Well, thank you. And that's why we asked you to be brand ambassadors, because not only your expertise, your knowledge, but your willingness to be vulnerable, share, because we just see people's lives improving. And there is that way the way in which you guys connect with people is so genuine, so real, that it facilitates that. It makes it easy for us, honestly. So you're making our job easier. It's hard sometimes to connect with people on the medical side of things there's a basic level of distrust or just confusion, a lot of noise, but you guys clear that up for people. And I love that you guys do that. You're literally impacting lives, changing lives. That's not an exaggeration. You changed my life in the short time I've known you for the better. And I really appreciate that. And our community really appreciates that. So thank you guys so much. We have to do this again sometime.
Yes,
All
for
right,
sure.
guys.
Let us know.
All right. Thanks, guys.